You know, man, as someone who's getting ready to graduate college, and I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to this, one of the most common questions I get asked is, "Oh, Amadou, what are you gonna do next? What are you doing after college? What's your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan?" The question comes in different formulations, but what people are trying to ask is, what am I going to do with my future? And of course, there's nothing wrong with the question inherently at all, but I think with the degree of times I've been asked this question and that mixed with my uncertainty, it can sometimes get a little bit, not annoying, but I don't know, give me a bit of unease sometimes. And again, this is not to blame anybody who's asking the question, but I think it's just a natural byproduct of my situation. It was a couple of days ago when I was walking in the morning. I was walking outside and I was thinking about this question, like, what am I going to do next after college, And I think I realized that while that question is valid, while it has importance, there's a more fundamental question that needs to be asked. There's an even more important question that needs to be asked. And the answer to that question will determine the answer to the question that everybody's asking me. And I think that question, if you're anything like me, is who am I? Who are you? And, I think before one, gets to the question of what am I going to do next, I think you need to find yourself first. We need to find ourselves first. What exactly do I mean by this? I think one of the reasons why a lot of young people, why a lot of us may struggle with what we're going to do next, because we haven't truly found ourselves yet. We don't really know who we are. We don't understand like the fundamental, deep parts of ourselves, you know what I mean? We don't fully understand what kinds of things we like, what kinds of things we don't like. We don't understand how we process the world. We don't understand how we perceive. We don't understand how we relate to our own feelings. Like, we just don't know who we truly are, And I think that whole saying, who are you, who am I, it can mean different things to different people slightly. But I think fundamentally, it's all about knowing things about yourself, having that deep connection with yourself. And I think, in the absence of that deep connection, it's almost impossible to figure out what we want to do next. Because I think that it's through having that deep, intimate, strong connection with yourself that you will figure out what to do, because you figure out who you are. In that sense, I think that the person who knows who they are is kind of like a magnet. Once you know who you are, what you stand for, who you are fundamentally, I don't think it will be a question of, well, what am I gonna do? It's more so what you want to do is gonna gravitate towards you. It's gonna come to you. You're like a magnet in that sense, because again, you know your likings, you know who you really are fundamentally. So instead of like beating up on yourself and scratching your head trying to figure out what to do next will come to you. It will come easily, And that's not to say that, once you figured out who you are, just sit around and what you're supposed to do next is going to come for you. No. What I'm saying is that once you figured out who you are, it will be easier to figure out what to do next, because you just have a better grasp of yourself. I think all of a sudden things and places where you never thought you could see yourself doing working, or places where you never thought you'd get opportunity, you'll start seeing opportunity in those things, because who you are will begin to correlate more with the external world. Who you are, you will begin to see that manifested in different ways in the world. And I think in the midst of, like, if you're kind of in a situation like mine where like the pressure almost feels like it's on, about to graduate, and the expectation from some people is that, you figure it out right now. But I think what needs to be figured out, like I'm saying, is who you are. Who are you fundamentally, man? And it's really interesting, I think in the age, I've said this in prior videos, but just in the distraction-filled world that we live in, I think the question of who you are, perhaps there's never been a harder time to determine an answer to that. And that's because the left and right there are distractions. I think as young people especially, we genuinely struggle with sitting by ourselves, sitting with our thoughts, becoming fully acquainted with the self. And that's because, frankly speaking, a lot of us are simply overstimulated. You know what I mean? When you sit down to like read a book, or maybe even just like look at the sky, or just observe nature, all that we're feeling is that tingling to pick up the phone and go scroll on TikTok or go on Instagram and look at what this person or that person is doing. So the world is just filled with so many distractions, and I don't think it's the world to blame. I think it's us to blame. It's not necessarily the case that we got to pick up our phones and scroll. No, but we've just become so accustomed to do so this makes it hard for us to genuinely sit down and be alone with ourselves, be alone with our thoughts, be able to process so that we can find ourselves, man. So that's one thing I would say, man. It's definitely something that I'm looking to adopt, through just sitting with myself, through meditation, through just different avenues, just being able to sit with myself and process things of the past, hopefully things of the future, things that happen today, just being able to process and just staying away from those distractions, I should say. Another thing that I think that can really help us with this is, just immersing ourselves in new experiences. I've been blessed in college, and I don't mean to say this as a precursor of some kind, to say, oh, I found myself, because I'm definitely in the journey of doing so. But, to be honest, I've been blessed with so many opportunities and, just new things that the older me would have never thought that I would try. And I think this is exactly what we need to do. We need to put ourselves in uncomfortable yet growthful situations to see how we will react, to see if we like this thing or if we don't like this thing. It's through putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations that you will find yourself, man. Or at least that's one piece of the pie. It's funny, I feel like this video is gonna go all over the place, but whatever. I think when it comes to finding ourselves, one of the reasons why some of us shy away from it is because it's a daunting task. A lot of us frame it in our minds of, okay, by finding myself, this means I need to figure out some of the most fundamental, most important things about the world and about myself. I need to dive really deep. And while you do need to dive really deep, I think it's important to remember that this is a process. You're not going to find yourself in a day or 2 or 3 or a week or a month. It's going to take time, you know what I mean? And I think it's all about embracing the process, knowing that it is going to take time, and that's okay. For truly, man, I think it's once we found ourselves, man, then we can seriously, look at the question, now, what am I going to do next? But that's my advice. I'd love to know what y'all think about it. Definitely still trying to find myself and, further, understand and learn what does that mean? What does that mean for me and what it means in general? But, that's all I got to say for this for now. I'll see y'all soon.